What's up, fantasy football fanatics out there? Ryan Thomas for a special episode of the Thomas Take Sports Podcast. For all of you fantasy football fanatics out there, I have to let you guys know where you can find me if you need fantasy football help from here on out, the rest of the season, the rest of the way. I am here for you. You're here for me. You're tuning in. The least I can do is pay it forward a little bit. You guys tune into the show. I help you guys with your fantasy football roster, and I help you guys, most importantly, win your league. So let's get right to it with a top 10 countdown, the game's most important position. Always my opinion here, just throwing the opinion out there right out of the get-go here, right out of the gate. The running back position is the most important position for fantasy football purposes, whether it is PPR or not. Points per reception, standard scoring, the running back position, if you can find yourself the right running back and take the right running back in your fantasy draft, you are setting yourself up for success. For more fantasy football help, at Ryan Thomas Take on Twitter and Instagram. Of course, you guys know the Thomas Take Sports Podcast is also available, on YouTube, Facebook, Apple Podcasts, Spotify. The show is everywhere. The show is out there for your viewing and listening consumption, and I greatly appreciate the love and support. So let's get right to it. The top 10 running backs for fantasy football this 2021 season. And it's safe to say that I am very pumped for this top 10. Safe to say that you guys need to fire away your comments so Ryan Thomas can answer them and answer those questions. You guys got questions? I got answers. So, a big question with the running back position is we've had our fair share, okay? We've had our fair share of running backs that are top-tier guys, top-tier, talents that have had their fair share of injuries, I guess you should say. I guess I could say. So ranking this top 10 was a lot tougher than it was for the quarterbacks. I'll be quite honest with you. It was a lot tougher, was not as easy, but Ryan Thomas is here to rank the players 1 out of 10, and that's what I did. So who is my 10th rated running back, regardless of points per reception, regardless of standard scoring? These are the best 10 running backs in fantasy football in my personal opinion. The 10 running backs that I would want, one of these two of these 10, if you get some knuckleheads in your draft, if they allow you to get 2 of these 10 guys, you are in good shape. But hey, keeper leagues, that could happen. You could end up with 2 out of these 10 guys. Who's to say it couldn't happen? Anything's possible, right? So number 10, none other than Chargers running back Austin Eckler, one of my favorite running backs in fantasy football. If you have Austin Eckler on your team, especially in a points per reception league, you are in great shape. You will find yourself racking up 15 points on a down week from Austin Eckler in a PPR. Max, Austin Eckler could get you 25 to 30 points a week, depending on the target share in the passing game. Justin Herbert was spreading the ball around extremely well as a rookie quarterback for the LA Chargers. Austin Eckler, upon returning to the game from an injury, Austin Eckler was a top 5 fantasy back. So I put Austin Eckler number 10 here. The only reason why I don't have him higher is because we got 9 guys that I just think are better. It's just that simple. Just 9 guys that I think are just a little bit better than Austin Eckler in terms of what he brings to the table. I do love what he brings to the table. I think Austin Eckler belongs in a top 10 fantasy running back ranking, regardless of the scoring. The props need to be shown for the little running back that can squeak through the cracks, catch a nice pass. So from one Justin Herbert. Number 9, Green Bay Packers running back Aaron Jones. Aaron Jones is a powerful running back. He's a running back that definitely enjoys that contact type play, somewhat like Marshawn Lynch a little bit in that regard. Marshawn Lynch loved him some contact, no doubt. Aaron Jones is one of those guys. I think Aaron Jones it's to his success and to his detriment, though, that he has that style. It has allowed Aaron Jones to get hurt. It has allowed the thought from one former guest of the Thomas Take Sports podcast by the name of Tyler Dunn. Go check him out, golongtd.com. He's got a great podcast with Jim Manos and Doug Whaley. You know that name. Check out that show. Tyler Dunn believes that A.J. Dillon is the next big thing at the running back position in the NFL as well. Within the Green Bay Packers roster, he's a big sleeper type player, right? So that would obviously hurt Aaron Jones. If Aaron Jones does get hurt again, A.J. Dillon could be that guy. I'm going to take Tyler's word for it. So why I'm saying that to you is that Aaron Jones is the RB1 of the Green Bay Packers, but have a backup plan. Even if that backup plan consists of A.J. Dillon, who is on the same exact team as Aaron Jones. So Aaron Jones, I think that's somebody that I like in the top 10. Granted, I'm hoping that for your sake and for my sake, if I take one of these guys, that all of these running backs, I hope that all of these running backs are healthy for you. And if they are healthy for you, that means you're going to win your league. Aaron Jones at number 9. Number 8. Now, number 8 is somebody that I think this is going to be very interesting, because number 8 is somebody that I think belongs in the conversation as, shall I say, man, this is tough. Number 8 is somebody that I think belongs in the conversation, arguably higher than where he is. But nonetheless, I'm going with man. I have this here, and now I might change it. Okay, I might change it, but no. You know what? For the sake of the fans, I'm going to leave it the way it is. I'm not changing it. I have a running back that I really like, that I think belongs in the top 8. I can't put him higher than 8. None other than Jonathan Taylor. He's in his second season, but he was very, very good for the Indianapolis Colts. It's safe to say that Jonathan Taylor, I think, is a rising player in this league. For all the dynasty football fanatics out there, Jonathan Taylor is a name that has jumped out at virtually anyone that is playing dynasty football, and for, all the right reasons. I think he does have a style that will provide him with longevity. He's not somebody that really takes on too many hits. He's a smart runner. And the keys to the Indianapolis Colts offense, the keys to Frank Reich's Ferrari, Jonathan Taylor is putting the key in the ignition, and he's taking the car over. It's like a Herbie fully loaded Ferrari that Jonathan Taylor's going with. It's kind of a weird analogy there, but I think Jonathan Taylor could very well end up being a top 5 fantasy football running back this year. You have a lot of question marks on that Colts offense, whether or not Carson Wentz can stay healthy. That's always a question mark, whether he was on the Eagles or now on the Colts. But Jonathan Taylor was somebody that was a solid addition to the Indianapolis Colts, a player in the collegiate ranks that I really liked, someone that I wanted to head to Buffalo that didn't, unfortunately. But Jonathan Taylor, I think, is rightfully listed in this top 10 as a top 10 fantasy football running back. I think if you get him, you could have the potential to really be good year in, year out. If you're in a dynasty league, that's the guy, that one of the few guys that you should be looking at and saying, yes, he's a solid player. So Jonathan Taylor listed as my number 8 running back in my top 10 fantasy running backs list. The next one is Ezekiel Elliott. Now, this is where things get a little tricky. Okay, this is where things get kind of tough. When I talk about some of these players, this is a top 10. We're talking about 10 players. 10 players that are all talented in their own way, right? But 10 players that Ezekiel Elliott might be more talented than all of them. He might be the most talented running back in the NFL in terms of balance, in terms of vision, in terms of speed, power, elusiveness. Ezekiel Elliott has always checked off every single box that you would want from a running back, other than one box. And that one box would be his concentration. Is Zeke more worried about whether he's wearing a hoodie under his jersey or a shirt that's too small so we could see his abs or his gut? I'm kind of over that. As a football fan and as a fantasy football player, I'm kind of over the Ezekiel Elliott, worrying about himself more than he's worrying about, his actual stat line and how he's contributing to his team. I haven't really enjoyed that as a football fan these last few years. I hope that Ezekiel Elliott starts to take things a little bit more seriously than what he has in, let's just say especially in last season. Last season, he did not seem to really take things as seriously as I would have liked to have seen him take them, especially when Dak Prescott goes down with an injury. You would hope that Ezekiel Elliott would kind of take on that leadership role, take the reins of the offense. In fact, when Dak went out, Ezekiel Elliott was nowhere to be found. So for that, Ezekiel Elliott falls out of the top 5, falls out of the top 3, and falls down to the 7th best top 10 running back in my list. I am somewhat avoiding Dallas this year. I don't know what to think of Dallas. There's a ton of question marks with Dak Prescott, and there are a ton of question marks with the, motivation of Ezekiel Elliott. I know he's got the talent. I'm not debating that. Can he motivate himself to put it all together and have a banner year this year? Last season was terrible for a running back of his talent. 900, 800 yards for Ezekiel Elliott. He should be getting 1,600, 1,700 a year with the talent that he has in this window of opportunity that he has in his career as a young running back. He should be generating those types of stats, but he didn't last year. So number 6 running back on the Ryan Thomas top 10 fantasy football running back list for the 2021 season. This is the biggest risk that you have in fantasy football. Okay. This is the biggest risk that any fantasy football player will take, whether it is at, top 5 pick, top 10 pick. The talent level cannot be denied. This player belongs to be picked within the top 10 picks of your entire fantasy draft, maybe even top 5, but he was hurt last year. He had a vicious, devastating knee injury last year, and that is Saquon Barkley of the New York Giants. Saquon Barkley is the type of player that I just love to watch. I think he is a Hall of Fame level talent, and it was truly devastating watching Saquon Barkley suffer the injury that he did and watching the Giants suffer for it. I'm not a Giants fan, but nobody wants to see a player of Saquon Barkley's caliber to go down like that. Nobody wants to see that. Saquon Barkley is as legit as it gets in terms of his talent, in terms of what he could provide the league with these next, 8 to 10 years. From an entertainment standpoint, you never want to see a player of his talent get hurt that early. And yet, here we are. Saquon Barkley has already suffered the worst injury of his NFL career. Better early than late, though, in my opinion. Better early than late in terms of this is early in his career. He suffered the injury. He is young enough to get through it and to bounce back from it. And I'm calling my shot. I think Saquon Barkley could be a big bounce back player for you in 2021. It's a risky assessment on my point, on my part, I should say. But Saquon Barkley is somebody that I really truly feel, along with Ezekiel Elliott, along with the running back that I'll discuss in a little bit, the 3 biggest talents at that position: Ezekiel Elliott, Saquon Barkley, and we'll leave the other one for a little later. So stay tuned for that. Who is the 3rd running back that I think is the most talented in the league? So Saquon Barkley doesn't belong in my top 5 due to the fact that he was hurt last year. There's that question. So because of that question mark, I don't question Saquon's motivation like I do with Zeke, but I do question how will he come back from that injury? Can he come back from that injury and play at the level that he once did? I think he can, but you got to take those factors into consideration, pluck him out of the top 5. He falls to 6th in my top 10. Number 5 is a running back that I think the best has yet to come for this player. Nick Chubb of the Cleveland Browns is a very fun running back to not only watch, but a very fun running back to watch and wonder how much better could this guy be? I think he's going to only get better. He has the skill set that I think could lead the Cleveland Browns to a deep playoff run. And he is heavily relied upon within that Kevin Stefanski offense. Kevin Stefanski comes from Minnesota last year to Cleveland to become the head coach of the Cleveland Browns. And of course, you're starting to run that run first offense. And Nick Chubb is going to get his touches. Kareem Hunt, RB2 in Cleveland, he's going to get his touches. But I think Nick Chubb has taken on a bell cow type role in Cleveland. As the season wore on last year, Chubb only really seemed to get better with what was thrown at him. And he did have an injury last year. He was out for a little bit, but I really liked how he responded. And beyond that, I think he's going to be only better and better these next couple years, these next 3-4 years. Nick Chubb is a name that you will hear quite often. And Nick Chubb, for as talented as he is, whether the Browns miss or make the playoffs, that literally falls on the shoulders of not Baker Mayfield, but Nick Chubb. Nick Chubb is the leader of that offense, not Baker. I think Nick Chubb is probably the best case that you could make for a future beast bell cow running back, and that's why I have him 5th on my top 10 list. Number 4, the ever elusive Alvin Kamara. God bless this man. This man dominated in the championship week last year for fantasy football owners. He had 5 or 6 touchdowns? 6 touchdowns, I believe. Something crazy, record-breaking. The downside to this season for Kamara, what is it? Well, Drew Brees is not in the building. How much is that going to affect Alvin Kamara? I'd like to think it would. I don't know how much it will, but I'd like to think that the retirement of Drew Brees is going to change that offense drastically. Does it give Kamara more touches in the passing department? For a PPR league, does it give PPR owners a reason to say that Kamara will be targeted in the passing game much more than he already has been? I think you can make a case for that. And, normally, Alvin Kamara is that in between the tackles running back. When he was young in his first couple, not when he was young, he's young now, but when he was young in his NFL career, he was getting targeted out of the backfield. I'd like to see that happen more often. Because when Alvin Kamara has the ball in space, there are a few guys in the NFL that are as good as him with the ball in his hands and in space. So for that, Alvin Kamara, my 4th best fantasy football running back. Now, drum roll. We get into the top 3. Top 3 features the 3 best, in my personal opinion, the 3 best fantasy football running backs that you could have on your roster. If you have one of these 3 guys, and if one of these 3 guys, all these 3 guys stay healthy, I guarantee you that these players will represent the finals players on a championship team, whether it's team A versus team B, or God forbid, if people are dumb enough in your league to pass on these players and allow one team to get 2 of these 3 players, which I have heard that has happened lately. Wow, that would be crazy. So number 3, the bell cow in Minnesota, Davin Cook. The Minnesota Vikings, once upon a time, they went out, they signed Kirk Cousins to a 3-year, $86 million deal, fully guaranteed. We knew that they would come to regret it. We knew that Kirk Cousins wasn't worth the money. And then the Minnesota Vikings got Davin Cook. I was like, okay, we see you. We understand. We're a run-first team. We're going to feed this guy the ball. As I talked about with number 5, the top 5 running back, the 5th best running back on my list, Nick Chubb. Kevin Stefanski loves to run the football. He established Davin Cook as a bell cow back and then departed for Cleveland. And it left a lasting impression on the Minnesota Vikings offensive coordinator, the new offensive coordinator. Nothing really changed. If anything, Davin Cook's workload increased in certain capacities, whether he's being targeted on the backfield more attempts, higher yards per carry. Davin Cook showed last year that he is as legit as they come. He is a legit force as a running back, and there are very few in this league quite like Davin Cook in terms of how he's able to do it in between the tackles, knifing through a defense, making guys miss, making guys fall right off of him. An extremely low center of gravity, not that he is even short, because he's not short. The way he runs is very unique, and I only expect him to continue to put together, an extremely solid and entertaining season year after year after year. This year should be a really big year for him. Whether or not Minnesota makes the playoffs or not remains to be seen. But Davin Cook, he's a real one. He's a legit force in the NFL, and I think people need to start taking notice and giving him his justified credit. For as bad as the Vikings have been, Davin Cook's one of the main reasons why people are talking about the Vikings. So, number 2, a guy that I told you guys you should potentially take first overall. And I made a really good case. If you missed that podcast, you should tune into it. But nonetheless, number 2, the number 2 best fantasy football running back is none other than Derrick Henry, the NFL leading rusher last year, over 2,000 yards, over 17 touchdowns rushing, over 20 total, I believe, receiving touchdowns as well. Derrick Henry was a freight train that just simply could not be stopped. Derrick Henry is a freight train that simply cannot be stopped. I don't see the freight train being slowed down anytime soon. The only thing that can get in Derrick Henry's way would be an untimely injury. But this man is built like a Greek god and moves just as fast as a Dalvin Cook, as an Alvin Kamara. Maybe the elusiveness isn't quite the same, but the speed is there. It's definitely there. For a man as big as Derrick Henry, it's amazing that he's able to put together the runs that he can, the form and fashion that he can. Derrick Henry is, you want to talk about a bell cow running back, Nick Chubb, Alvin Kamara, Dalvin Cook, Derrick Henry is that guy. So if you're contemplating a few names at first overall, I think Derrick Henry should be thrown in that mix as one of those guys. Regardless of PPR scoring or not, Derrick Henry is a solid bet for your fantasy team. Number 1, I think this man is one of the 3 best players in the National Football League. One of the 3 best. Okay? Now, you're not going to ask me the other 2 best, but we'll just say one of the 2 best. Pat Mahomes, Chris McCaffrey, and I guess I'll say the third one. I'd say Tom Brady. Those are the 3 best players in the league offensively. So, spoiler alert, Christian McCaffrey is my number 1 rated 2021 fantasy football running back. And this is coming from a guy that was in a keeper league that had Christian McCaffrey going into the league, going into the draft. He was on my team already as a keeper. Used a 3rd-round tender on him. It was my last year with Christian McCaffrey in this league. I didn't have him practically the whole season, and I still won my league. How about that? So, Christian McCaffrey, number 1, I think Christian McCaffrey is one of the best players in the league in terms of what he provides you from a fantasy football perspective. Catching, running, this man is a beast. He's putting together a Hall of Fame career. If it is a 8 to 10 year career, these numbers go down in history. What Christian McCaffrey has done in the short career that he's already had as an age 25-year-old running back, all-purpose yards, this man has joined the likes of LaDainian Tomlinson, Thurman Thomas, Barry Sanders. In terms of single-season all-purpose yards, Christian McCaffrey has been that beast once before. The question is, how serious was that injury last year? Can he be that beast again, or is this the start of a string of injuries? I think Christian McCaffrey is the equivalent to Captain America, okay? This guy will be out on that field week 1 for the Carolina Panthers, and I think his value has actually increased over the course of this offseason despite the injury, due to the fact that the Carolina Panthers, in my humble opinion, received an upgrade at the quarterback position. All due respect to Teddy Bridgewater, but Sam Darnold is a younger, more talented quarterback than Teddy Bridgewater. It's just a matter of whether Darnold can actually achieve that talent. That's the question. But I think from a passing standpoint, you got Robbie Anderson there. You got Moore there. You have Christian McCaffrey there. And there are a few players that can catch the ball and run as crisp a route as Christian McCaffrey. Christian McCaffrey could have a career in the NFL as a wide receiver if he wanted to. That's how good this guy is. So, number 1 overall in my top 10 fantasy football running back list, Christian McCaffrey. He's one of my favorite players in the NFL, and the NFL desperately needs him back, and they need him back in a big way. They need him back like he was before, dominating week in and week out. And I guarantee you, if you end up with Christian McCaffrey on your team, and Christian McCaffrey plays all season long, plays healthy, contributes points after points, weeks after weeks, solid week, you will find yourself in the finals. It is a guarantee. I had Christian McCaffrey 4 years in a row, and I went to the finals every single year, including the year that he was on my team, but he wasn't on my team. So maybe Christian McCaffrey is a luck of the Irish type player for you and your fantasy squad. I truly believe that McCaffrey has been working all offseason to get back to full strength and full health. And I know one thing is for sure, I'm excited to see him back and raring to go. I think he could be the NFL leading rusher this upcoming NFL season. So with that, I'm Ryan Thomas. That was the Thomas Take Sports Podcast Top 10 Fantasy Football Running Backs. For more fantasy football help, follow me on Twitter at Ryan Thomas Take, as well as on Instagram at Ryan Thomas Take. I would greatly appreciate you guys tuning in to each and every one of these top 10 countdown shows. Next up, wide receivers. Next week's show, wide receivers, ranking them. I thought running backs was hard. My God. Points per reception leagues caused me to just go bonkers over these wide receivers. So very excited for that countdown. You guys enjoy the show. Hope you enjoyed the show, I should say, and enjoy the next show and the show after that. The show after that. I'm not going anywhere. Thomas Take Sports Podcast, here to stay, taking over. Let's go.